E3 are trying to save themselves with a rebranding. Bungie has just got started on Destiny 2 with a new massive plan being unveiled. BioWare are adopting a new strategy for the future of Anthem, and more Death Stranding games could be on the way. Plus, Apple Arcade has launched, actually to the surprise of some of its developers. All of this and more in today's episode of The Roundup. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Roundup. It's been a bumper week for gaming news, and we've got the most important details here. Of course, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell because it really does help us out. And also consider checking out our new Discord server via the link in the description. So with all that done, let's get into the news. Significant changes may be on the horizon for E3. The Entertainment Software Association have proposed via a pitch deck intended for their core members, basically a rebrand. Their plans to turn E3 2020 into a festival, a little bit more in line with Gamescom in Germany. According to GameDaily.biz, the ESA's vision will see E3 rebranded as a fan media and influencer festival. So every time I hear influencer, I just die inside. And this is all going to be in time for next year's event that may see as many as 10,000 additional consumers on the show floor. The influencers portion isn't really playing around either, it seems, as the ESA's overhaul proposes leaning into influencers and paid celebrity deals with talent representation agencies. God, it really does sound depressing, doesn't it? The pitch deck really does make for some cringe-worthy reading at times. It's pretty bad. One proposal, which ties into the desire for a celebrity presence, will see experience hubs offering such invigorating spectacles as members of the LA Lakers, instead of playing basketball, just playing a basketball game. The ESA hopes that these experiences will generate exclusive/appointment-only activations for select attendees who will create buzz and FOMO. Oh wow. GameDaily.biz does confirm that internal ESA members actually rejected the idea of paying celebrities, though, instead preferring to invite them through an organized program instead. It's a little unclear why the ESA want to make these changes beyond just general insecurities over the state of E3. One later note in the pitch deck proposes that instead of paying them, the ESA could engage with influencers by offering to support charitable efforts, with the influencers returning the favor by providing the industry with validation, attention, and excitement across media outlets beyond the video game space. Now, why the ESA, of all people, think that video games need validation, that's beyond me, especially considering how successful other events can be. I think it speaks more to the ESA's collective self-esteem issue and desire to increase the profile of E3 itself, something that a lot of people are just a bit down on as of late, and them not really having much of an idea how to do so. Even if you include the additional 10,000 attendees that they hope to bring in with these changes, it's not going to come even close to matching the numbers of some of the biggest conventions in the world. The ESA certainly seem to be looking at Gamescom with envious eyes, but Gamescom's 2019 attendance of 373,000 people absolutely dwarfs E3's 66,000, and improving things is going to take a lot more than a couple of influencers telling their Instagram feed just how cool and trustworthy they are. So more in this later on, but really does seem like they're kind of grasping at straws, which kind of makes sense given how a lot of big names pretty much abandoned E3 this year. Then next we've got some very interesting news from Destiny 2 in advance of the launch of the Shadowkeep expansion this October. Various developers from Bungie featured in a new video update to let us know that Destiny 2 has a 5-year plan that will kick off with Shadowkeep. Bungie state in their video that they want to build Destiny for its core fans and the people who love it, and that to that end they're going to be investing in large-scale systems overhauls, which will just make a whole suite of changes. Now, for director Luke Smith, the Shadowkeep expansion is the first major step in this road of sweeping changes that will involve core mechanics such as the newly reworked armor system in the game. Now, Shadowkeep is also going to change how Bungie handles their season pass. Bungie want to focus more and more on how the seasons connect and relate to each other rather than standing in isolation, which ideally will allow them to have a more cohesive narrative structure across the seasons, as well as to effectively pursue their goal of telling one continuous story with Destiny 2. Then healthier PvP is also a strong focus for Bungie. The devs are looking to bring back fan-favorite features such as class maps and modes, which is certainly something that I would like, and I do think Destiny 2 has been lacking in. Apparently, there will be featured modes every week, and that actually almost reminds me of way back in the days of Halo 2 and Halo 3, where you'd constantly have your, your weekend zombie events, and how that generally was something that worked pretty well for the game's engagement. Bungie's enthusiasm for Destiny 2's future really, it does seem to be a clear product of their split from Activision. I mean, the sheer amount of changes, the scope of the changes that the devs want to make, that does speak to Bungie finally being able to stretch out and actually showcase their vision of Destiny 2 without fear of compromise. It does seem like they're able to do a lot with their freedom. Even beyond Shadowkeep, Bungie are planning a stack of new content such as raids and nightmare hunts, which just illustrates the degree of creative freedom that they certainly weren't, or at least it seems like they weren't able to exercise while under Activision's boot. Now, one negative to this, if it can even be considered to be a negative considering the wealth of content they aim to deliver, is that the implementation of Destiny 2's 5-year plan is very likely going to push any type of Destiny 3 quite far down Bungie's lists of priorities. Now, as I said, that could be seen as a negative if you really want Destiny 3 to happen, but to be honest with you, I don't see any reason to just wipe the board and do Destiny 3. Coming from my experience doing a Warcraft channel, which by the way is still running, I know a lot of you don't know about it, but that's actually where I started off, that's our largest channel, but from doing that, it always just seemed odd having an MMO-like game that had a reset operate in that manner. So I do think that the core Destiny players will absolutely welcome that change and this 5-year roadmap. That's a franchise that I think always had a lot of promise, always had a lot of strong mechanics, but was constantly held back by just a myriad of issues. If they can push past that, I think it could be, well, it could just result in a very good product, and I think that's really the most we can ask for from it. And then very much on the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got BioWare releasing a new blog post that details what's next for Anthem as their Cataclysm event wraps up. So, BioWare's head of live services, Chad Robertson, writes that the Anthem team have been humbled by the increase in player engagement experienced during the event, which, I mean, seems odd to me. I can't imagine many people actually came back for it. But anyway, it's this sort of response, he says, that motivates the team to continue to improve Anthem. So, I mean, basically, there was a whole bunch of fluff. This was a very short post, and it was mostly fluff. Now, he went on to thank the public test server players for providing feedback, as it's allowed the Anthem team to develop a priority list of desired fixes and improvements. Certainly seems to be a sane, good thing. Robertson then goes on to recognize that the team hears your concerns on the core issues in Anthem and are acting on it. Those systems require a more thorough review and reworking versus just quick fixes. So that's what he said, and I think he pretty much is bang on there. That's absolutely what the game needs. It needs fundamentals, not just, incremental additions. Now, to this end, the post announces that Anthem will be moving away from its standard act structure for updates. So yes, the roadmap firmly out the window, and it's instead going to rely on planned seasonal updates while the team focuses on addressing the core issues. Robertson concludes by stating that while he doesn't have any concrete news to share regarding the long-term plans for Anthem, the team will continue to engage with the player base in the interests of transparency. Anthem certainly has a long road ahead of it if it's going to realize any of the potential that people saw in it. BioWare's continued work on the title does show a true desire to improve it, though. They could have just cut and ran, and it's good that they didn't. However, it just might be, well, it's just hard to know at this stage. It might be quite a while before we see anything. At E3 2018, Anthem's director, Jonathan Warner, told GameDaily.biz that Anthem was the kind of game he always dreamed of making, and, well, hopefully the work being put in now will actually realize that dream. For their part, EA have iterated that Anthem has their support going forward, with Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, of course, confirming at this year's E3 that despite its problems, EA and BioWare are fully committed to fixing the issues and supporting the game. The future, I suppose, therefore, could be looking on the up for Anthem, as both EA and BioWare have said they're committed to the IP in the long haul. Cataclysm seems to have brought players in, even if it wasn't that great from my read of the situation, and I suppose the game also was recently added to EA Access and Origin Access in an attempt to further bolster its player base. Now, all that being said, I think the post somewhat backfired. I think they could have been more clear. They didn't say enough about the nature of their longer-term plans, and much of the post was a recap that was full of fluff. The audience for this game is either dejected or is hungry for more information, and I imagine that this post will have only reinforced the former. Ultimately, I think that abandoning the roadmap is a good thing. I think you'll see that sold as a negative quite a lot, but it is a good thing because the roadmap's not working. So if something's not working, you've got to throw it out. And much like what I've said with, say, No Man's Sky, stick with it, be quiet, not working quick fixes, but actually working fundamentals. Hopefully they do that, and it is a success. Next, though, it's fast approaching Call of Duty time as the Modern Warfare Open Beta kicks off across the PC, PS4, and Xbox One. This is the first time However, the Call of Duty players have been able to play together across all platforms, and many people seem to be quite excited to engage in a few warm-up games ahead of its full release next month. Certainly I am. I played the alpha, and you know what? I had a lot of fun. I thought it was really quite good indeed. Balance and fairness, though, have always been a major concern for a game like this, and of course because of crossplay and the input methods. But Call of Duty Modern Warfare has combated this problem by supporting a variety of control schemes on each platform, each with their own matchmaking. So mouse and keyboard users will only be able to play with other mouse and keyboard users, and the same goes for the controllers. So that means that PS4 and Xbox players can feel free to plug in their mouse and get clicking. I actually did that and it worked pretty well. And if PC players want to test the console waters, then they'll have to use a controller. Not that I can see them really wanting to, but hey, it's pretty good. Now, in another first, developers Infinity Ward have announced that the post-launch content will release simultaneously across all platforms as a way of keeping all the versions in parity. This means new maps, modes, missions, etc. will just all be out in the same time, and that's pretty much eliminating the early access that the PS4 got. So overall, it seems like good news from this game, but of course, I mentioned future content, and that does bring up the massive looming concern over this game, which is, in light of Black Ops 4, will they make this really, by all accounts, tremendous game and then just ruin it by just pumping it full of microtransactions that are ruinous, especially having gameplay impacting stuff inside loot boxes, because if they do that, they will lose me. Then next, discoverability seems to be quite a trend in gaming these days, and Twitch have signaled their intention to improve visibility on their platform through the acquisition of the Internet Games Database. So the IGDB is a comprehensive gaming resource dedicated to pretty much gathering all relevant gaming information. And following this acquisition, IGDB's database will actually feed into Twitch's search and discover functionalities. A spokesperson for Twitch told website TechCrunch that millions of people come to Twitch every single day to find and connect with their favorite streamers and communities, and that Twitch wants to make it easier for people to find what they're looking for. So interesting, more discoverability is certainly a good thing. Now, for their part, in a post on Medium, the IGDB team stated that joining Twitch will help them in their ultimate goal of creating the most comprehensive gaming database in the world by tapping into Twitch's experience, resources, and skills. So basically, it's kind of the boilerplate that you would expect whenever an acquisition comes. That's really what every single acquired team pretty much says when they get bought out. Now, it's worth noting that Amazon, who are Twitch's owners, have also recently purchased both IMDb and Goodreads. So in context, it is actually part of a wider picture. Amazon obviously likes to own indexing services in order to help them with their own curation abilities, and this strategy seems to have actually passed down to Twitch. So yes, Amazon now does own IMDb and IGDB, so that's quite something, and I suppose for them, that's just all going to be going into them predicting what consumers want, using all of the search data that they get to think about new products, new acquisitions, a bit like how Netflix runs its algorithm to work out what kind of stuff people are interested in and how that feeds into their greenlighting process and renewals process for shows. Next up, though, we've got Death Stranding. It's still a few weeks away from release, but there may already be the need for sequels, according to the big man himself, Hideo Kojima. Kojima has gone on record saying that he believes Death Stranding to be the first title of a new genre of Strand games. What is a Strand game? Nobody knows. And this week he stated that more games may be needed in order for developers and players to fully explore the genre, whatever it may be. In an interview with GameSpot, Kojima voiced his concern that Death Stranding may not be enough for Strand games to basically give Strand games the genre permanence that he's hoping for, and that he may need sequels and also standalone titles to expand on the existing ideas and explore what can be done with the genre as a concept. He also expressed a desire to refine the sorts of ideas and mechanics that are presented in Death Stranding. He told GameSpot, the most difficult part is when you create something new, you have to create a sequel and then a third version, or it will not remain as a genre. And that's very interesting. Kojima clearly does see his games as just being another thing onto themselves, rather than, being a stealth action game. And I suppose that wacky way of thinking about it does kind of explain how his games don't tend to be like other ones. Kojima certainly has been open about understanding his game due to Death Stranding supposedly being the first of its kind, and his discussion of sequels and the like at this early stage, it does show that he's dedicated to fully fleshing out this idea. Again, whatever it may be, because we don't just know. Either that, or he still has no idea exactly what he's made, and he's also trying to find out what it is. So, yeah, who the hell knows? Oh, and he also mentioned that he'd love to work with Keanu Reeves in the future, so maybe that's what's going to be in, I don't know, 2 Death, 2 Stranding, or whatever he's going to do next. And then one last piece of news, and this may not be of interest to you immediately, but I think it's a really important one to tune into, and that is that the Apple Arcade is now live. Apple's premium gaming subscription service officially launched on the 19th of September at a cost of $4.99, with a first month being free. Now, the arcade boasts over 100 unique titles across a variety of different genres and creative backgrounds, and it promises monthly updates to the library and original releases from renowned creators. Right off the bat, there's already quite a lot to choose from, with highlights including the first part of Shantae and the Seven Sirens, which is currently without a release date on other platforms. Then there's the Bullet Hell Climber Exit the Gungeon, and the sort of playable music video Sayonara Wild Hearts. Now, speaking of Sayonara Wild Hearts, we've already had a little bit of Apple Arcade drama this week. The arcade soft launched to participants of the iOS 13 beta program, so a select number of users were able to just play those games a few days early. Now, that's all well and good, I had some fun doing that too, but this beta period actually came as a surprise to many of the developers on the Apple Arcade, such as the Sayonara Wild Hearts developer, who basically had no idea that the entire beta period thing would even be a thing. They went even further on Twitter, saying that they believed players were not playing the final version of the game. So yeah, really quite wild indeed. Now, I actually tried it, and honestly, my experience was quite good, and it could speak to a potential future. So a PS4 controller actually paired to my iPad Pro 12.9 easily. I plugged the iPad into a TV using a USB-C cable, so very sleek setup, and found, well, significantly better performance than most Switch games, as an example. Now, the arcade library was a mixed bag. There were some games which were clearly hurt by being designed for mobile, but there were others that sitting there on a couch, there was like a fighting game that was actually pretty good, and they worked quite well indeed. And basically what we see with the arcade is early glimpses of what could be a promising new game ecosystem of premium mobile games that are, well, not held back by the free-to-play model. Working with a DualShock 4 controller is brilliant. It essentially means that providing the software is right, I can play console-quality games. I mean, I've forgotten its name, the like side-scrolling platformer game that's like on all the other platforms, pretty much plays perfectly on it. Now, certainly an iPad Pro, geekbenching at 18,000, is a lot more powerful than a Switch or something like that, but so it is an ideal experience, but it certainly seems like we're barely scratching the surface. So be it like this or VR, I'm always interested in new formats, form factors, business models, so because of that, I will keep an eye on this and I will report back to you. Anyway, that is it for today's episode of the Roundup. Of course, be sure to check out our report on the French situation as well today, and if you want to discuss this stuff, you can hit up the Discord. Thank you very much for watching this video, and with that, I will see you next time.